So I think we'll call the meeting to order. Hi, Joy.
Hello.
Thank you for muting because we're getting some feedback. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. We do have some guests. And so I am actually going to suggest that we jump right to our guests. And so I'm calling the meeting to order for the minutes at 6:04, and then we'll review minutes and committee reports, et cetera, and all that afterwards. And we may have another guest a little later. I think Jim Sini from Housing is going to try to join us a little bit later. I told him, at least 6:30. So, okay, so let's see here. Bridget, would you like to sort of speak and maybe introduce? We've got 3 guests right now. You and 2 people from the Courtney family.
Yes, absolutely. So was the last meeting the one I was also at? Was I at December meeting? So
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Yes. So
yes, you were. Yes, you were. December 9th.
Okay, great. So I think most folks on the committee are aware of the project we're here to talk about today, but to just give you all a little bit of background, I think Mary Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, but your husband reached out to Kestrel a few years ago to talk about this piece of land, which is in the family on Pomeroy Meadow Road. It's about 83 acres or so, to see if there were options for conservation. I know my conservation director, Mark Wamsley, went out with your husband, who sadly has since passed at the time, to look at the land together. And I think there was, some conversations, but that kind of devolved a little bit. And then we just picked the conversations back up this summer, looking at options for protection. And we did an appraisal of their land and looked at the resource values. It's beautiful land. It has a mix of farmland and wetlands and woodlands. And what we, I think, found was the most remarking resource value about it was its location within the Barnes Aquifer and its resource as drinking water supply. And so luckily there's a state grant for that, a drinking water supply protection grant. And so we feel that this land is a very good fit for funding to protect this land. And so Mary Beth has spoken with the rest of her family, and they're enthusiastic, I think, about the idea and happy to move forward. And we're very grateful for that. And Cindy and I have also talked with the Board of Water Commissioners and gotten their support as well. And so I think we're all in a very good place to move forward on that. And maybe I'll pause here to see if Mary Beth wants to comment at all, and then we can talk a little bit more about details of the grant itself.
Thank you. And I had a conversation with Mary Beth on the phone. She gave me some background. So that's what I'm hoping you can share with us, Mary Beth, a little bit.
I sure will. Well, our families collectively made the choice to ask the town of Southampton, along with Kestrel Land Trust, to help us with protecting this beautiful piece of land on Pomeroy Meadow. And as members of the family, I can speak on their behalf after talking with everyone about what we felt were our best options to, keep this beautiful land in its entirety so that we can enjoy it, preserve it, and, looking at the fact that it's over 80 acres on the western part of Pomeroy Meadow. We would like you to help us into the next step with the intent to protect these valuable local resources, being habitat, forest and water and meadow, and then also to consider, once you look at the possibilities, probably to focus on water, being that the Manhan River defines a lot of the parcel with wetlands, and the Barnes Aquifer, when we look at it, has a major yield contributing to that. But if it needs to be along with farming and just for open space and preservation of its natural beauty, we'd like you to help us through navigating next steps. And I have to say that this parcel came to us in the post, years ago. And I kept it thinking, our land has so much valuable land to help feed into the Barnes Aquifer, that this may be something for future, and here we are talking about it now. So thank you for sending that brochure out. I know a lot of time went into it, but it certainly sparked my interest.
Could you hold it up one more time, Mary Beth? Because I want to make sure
The drinking water.
okay. That is something.
It has the map on the back.
Okay, that wasn't years ago. That was sent out sent out last year, 2021. And I'm going to shout out for a member of our committee who could not be here tonight. His name is Charlie Mcdonald, and he was very much the spearhead for that whole project. Did all the work, got the quotes, worked with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, a particular individual there who's quite expert in water protection. And he can't be here. And I said to him, I'm going to, credit him for getting this to you and spurring you on to the direction you've taken. So thank you, Charlie. So. And by the way, this whole meeting is being videotaped and could be seen on Easthampton Media at any point. So just FYI, if there's people that are not here tonight that want to hear any of that, they can do that by signing into Easthampton Media. So thank you. I see another person named Caitlin Courtney Bedrecki, if I'm saying it right. Is there something she wants to add?
She might.
And I don't see a face. I don't know if she can put her camera on.
Hi, I can put my camera on.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Mama. Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin. I'm the oldest of 3 daughters. I live on Fulmer Road. My family just moved back here from Boston and just wanted to be here to support my mom through Zoom. And we're really excited about this. This was my dad's farmland and he would love that this could happen. And so we just are really excited. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Caitlin. This is great. And I know Mary Beth mentioned to me that she had spoken to other family members just to be sure everybody was kind of on the same page. And I'm really glad to hear that. So I think the other thing, and well, first, let me ask any committee members, do they want to ask any questions or comment at all so far to either Caitlin or Mary Beth or Bridget? You got to unmute if you are so inclined.
I guess I have a question. Like after Cindy and I walked there today and we saw that it has a lot of potential. Could we have, some kinds of trails on there, even if it's a water grant?
Yes, I think passive recreation is allowed and that includes trails.
Okay.
So I agree with that. We don't want a thoroughfare going back there, but we would certainly love to have people go back and enjoy. We've had neighbors going back down, doing snowshoeing and cross-country skiing, and then we've had some people with ATVs that took the trail, all the way up north. And it's, like you say, hard to navigate the land because they're not defined trails other than deer paths or animal trails. But we would love for people to enjoy the land and leave it and enjoy the natural beauty that it has to offer. Absolutely. If we could keep the meadow open, that's certainly one of our desires because it's always been an open meadow. In our house, we actually call the meadow. But, if maybe there were parking down back for people that want to get off the road and go down into the woods along the water, that would be fine.
Thank you for that question, Diana. Does anybody else want to ask them anything or comment? Okay. I do think once this all goes through, and I'm the eternal optimist, we will have to work with the Water Commission as well, because if it's water protection property, I know they'll want to say something about it. And also, however, the conservation restriction is defined as well. That's going to be part of it. And so, Bridget, at this point, you had sent out an email. And then you kind of backtracked a little bit on the timing, which was okay, because you talked to Mark. So we do have a town meeting coming up in May or June. It's our annual town meeting, and we don't have a date at this point. Joy, do we have a date at this point, as far as you know? I don't think we do. Joy is our select board.
No, I don't think we have a date yet.
Okay, thanks. So one of the things I think we need to do is probably go before the select board and then possibly go before town meeting to tell them about this project and also to get approval from the standpoint of the town, not just financial support, but also just support. Joy, is that your sense as well? Do you think that that would be part of the next steps?
I believe so. Does it need to
Usually,
I don't know if it needs to go to town.
right, no, first we would get permission to apply for a grant, I think. Usually that's what we've done. And then, you know, once that's underway and we're hopeful about that, then you would go to the town.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first step is get permission to apply for the grant, which will be a water commissioner's grant, right?
Yes, so this drinking water supply protection grant is intended for the water department to own the land as water supply protection land. And so they will be the official applicant and Kestrel will be applying on behalf of the water department. And so I've looked at past Southampton grants. I believe 2018 was the last time the town did this grant. And so Mark put together the application on behalf of the water department, and then the town administrator, Ed Gibson, was listed as the project manager, and he coordinated the select board approval to approve the application. And so I reached out to Ed, and he responded and let me know that, you know, he needs to hear directly from the water commission before he can move forward on that kind of approval. So it's on my list to circle back to the water commission and have them communicate their support of this grant to Ed so that he can move forward. And so once we have that, Ed will put together a cover letter and I believe put it before the select board for their approval and vote. And they're just approving to apply to the grant. And then once the grant's submitted and we get the grant awarded, all things, you know, good outcome, then we go back and we have to do a vote to have the town approved to acquire the land.
But my understanding is that anything to do with the water department, water grants, etc., the water commissioner has to spearhead. So if it does get brought to select board, they would be bringing it to select board.
Okay.
You can make a vote, I believe, to support it. And I think conservation might vote on supporting it. I think that's how it is, but otherwise it's spearheaded by the commissioner in conjunction with the town administrator.
Okay.
They're very, like, they have a lot more autonomy, the water department.
Okay.
Well, aside from all of that, it just so happens that I have to give a report to the select board from Open Space Committee. You know how we're doing these quarterly reports. So I'm just going to mention this in my report, which is the first select board meeting in February, if I've got my dates right. So I understand that we're not spearheading it, but as an open space project that it's going to fall under the Water Commission working with Ed, but just so the select board's at least aware of, you know, the fact that we've had these conversations. So,
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, and then of course, depending on where that goes, we will need CPC, that's community preservation, to know about the project, approve the project, and determine what the match is. And then we have to go to town meeting and get the town meeting, which is citizens voting, to utilize CPC funds for the match, whatever exactly the dollar amount is. There is a CPC meeting next Wednesday evening, and our chairperson, and I know Janet's also on CPC, she has already, you know, asked for me to, you know, just give any updates from open space regarding any projects that might fall to CPC. Hopefully we can get a lot of this going for our town meeting in April or June. cover all those things. And I see we have another committee member that joined us, April West. April, I just want you to know we've heard from Mary Beth Courtney and Caitlin Courtney Badzicki, who are the owners, the family owners of the land, the 83 acres off Pomeroy Meadow Road going up towards Easthampton. So did you have any specific comments or questions? I don't know how much you heard of the presentation, but.
I missed it, sorry. So I don't have any questions.
Okay, so thank you. Is there anything else, Bridget, that you want to add to any of this at this point?
So I think other things just to be on the radar for as we move this application forward. So the application itself is due March 18th. So we have about 2 months to get the application materials together. So along with the select board approval, what would also be helpful would be letters of support from the Open Space Committee and potentially the Planning Board as well.
Okay, that's good. And probably Conservation Commission too?
I don't think that would hurt.
I'm on the Planning Board, so I will email the chair to put that on the agenda. And is there any other important, and Diana, you worked on these grants before. What other letters of support were helpful from your past experience? You got to unmute, Diana.
I was going to say, we've had politicians voice support before, but I don't know if that was in the water one so much as it was for like mass trails. I don't recall that we asked for any of our representatives to weigh in for the water one. Not sure. I guess I could look.
Yeah, I looked at the 2018 one earlier this afternoon. I didn't see a politician support letter, but.
Okay, all right. Then we probably did not.
And then the one additional thing that will go with the application materials is a draft of the conservation restriction. So it'll probably be good to put that draft together and talk with both the Water Commission and with the Courtneys about, what parameters they would like to see. And of course, that's not the final draft and we can change it once the grant's awarded, but to have, a pretty good idea of what uses we want to see allowed on this land.
Will you be working on that draft, Bridget?
Yes.
Thank you. Yep. Great. Okay. This is wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm certainly entertaining any more comments or questions. Mary Beth, you know how to reach me now. So, and again, I only live around the corner down the road from you, but I think I'm going to want to walk out there a little bit more to get a little more flavor for it. So maybe somebody else would like to go too, or maybe you can go out some point. That'd be great. And so Caitlin and Mary Beth, you're certainly welcome to stay at the meeting if you wish. I think we'll move on to the next item. Bridget, you're welcome, but maybe you have other things you want to do too. So
I might hop off, but thank you all for your time and looking forward to working together on this.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming. All right, moving on. Thanks, Caitlin. Okay, so I can call up the minutes of the last meeting. Maybe share screen. Let's see here. So here's the draft minutes of our last meeting. And did everyone have a chance to review them? And I had sent them out a few days ago. And you see any questions, comments, clarifications?
Before anyone else speaks, I have some changes I would like to make, and I lost myself here. One, I noticed that, how do I do this side by side? I misspelled Bridget's name. It's Lively, not Likely.
Oh, good.
And I will fix that. The other thing is Charlie told me that I can't control your, that's fine. I can't control your, it's map 23, not map 24 for the 217 College Highway project, the paragraph a little bit farther down than what we can see on the screen. Right there. It,
the 217 one, 217 College Highway, that should be map 23.
And it's 24. And the paragraph up above where it says Courtney property, it says that you met with Mr. Slattery, the water commissioner. He is no longer the water commissioner. It's Tom Goggin, or however it's Goggin or something. And he, although Joe was the water commissioner forever, I think it should say past or whatever water commissioner. He's no longer the water commissioner.
Did you check that? Because when we went to the water commission, he was there.
Well, no, I'm sure he can't seem to retire. But if you go on to the town website, he is not listed as the water commissioner.
Oh, okay. I thought he was reelected. That's why
Well, that could be true. Maybe the town listing is wrong, but it's Tom Gaughan. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it is listed as the water commissioner. I can check with Joe or somebody to see if I really had been told that he was retiring, but he's having a hard time stepping down.
Okay. I think Tom Gahn, I think he's the water superintendent.
That could be. Be. But when I went on the website tonight, it said water commissioner. Let me just verify that.
Okay.
Who is the real water commissioner? And then the other two corrections that I made with the map number on College Highway and Bridget's last name.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks if you can do that. Anybody else have comments or
has any changes? We can do those too.
Anyone else? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to accept as corrected by Janet?
So moved.
Okay, April moved to accept as corrected.
I'll
Who was
second. Joy.
Okay, so Joy seconded it. A quick roll call vote. Fetterman, or you can just raise your hand if you're muted. Okay, that's a yes. Paula, I can't see your face. Oops, April, yes.
Yes.
Paula said yes. Joy? Yes.
Aye.
Janet? Yes. Cindy? Yes. Okay, unanimous with corrections. Okay, thank you very much on that. Let me get rid of that. Stop share. All right, moving on. Committee reports. If anyone has anything to add. I know April said she has other things she's got to take care of tonight, so let's let April go first. Is there anything from assessors that you'd like to report on, April?
Nothing that has to do with the Open Space Committee at this point. We're just doing our assessing business and still looking for a principal assessor.
What do we have, a temporary one at this point?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, good luck. So you're doing a lot of work yourself. I know you are. You're in there, and Janine is.
The board is doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
And Janine's doing a lot of work, and our interim's doing a lot of work, but the board is really spending a lot of time in town hall. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's see here. Paula, do you want to report from Parks?
Here I am. We really didn't have anything that came up at our meeting, and we had another meeting last night. Nothing that I would say that would involve open space.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
welcome.
Diana, could you speak anything about CPC? Concom?
Still working on the Manhan Meadows, trying to get the NOI off the ground. Other than that, they're always doing site visits, and they have another NOI for the water property on Cook Road that they're reviewing, that the state did. So, no, can't think of anything.
Okay,
Oh, I think Mr. Hendrick's donation has been completed. I think we knew that.
yes. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. That's on, as far as what we might do with that. Great. Joy, do you want to add something on select board?
No, there's a lot going on, but nothing that directly pertains to open space or even really indirectly. I'm
Okay.
aware of.
All right. Thank you. Janet, you want to say anything about CPC? You're muted.
Okay, we met on December the 8th and we discussed the park grant. And I'm sure you're going to be talking about the open space project that we had talked about, the Durrell's Path and that project. So in Palmer Meadow, that's about it. We really had a really quick meeting. So that's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And I'll report on planning board, and planning board has really done nothing related to open space. We've been continuing a very long project of zoning bylaw review. And there's nothing more to say about that for this meeting. So we can move on to, let's see here, old business. And we just had the report from the Courtneys, so we can move on to the next one, which is the one Janet just referred to as Durrell's Path. If you recall, we had determined that a letter would be sent directly to the Trinseri family. April helped me a great deal with that, as in addition to something called contract to purchase, which precedes a purchase and sale agreement. We finally heard back from the family, and the answer is they're not ready to sell. So we are stepping back. April and I did another letter and thanked them for getting back to us, asked them to please let Open Space Committee know if their thinking has changed, and reminding them that they could apply to put their property into a Chapter 61 status, which would, perhaps assist a little bit on the taxation of the property. April, did you want to add anything about that? Because you were helpful, super helpful on all of that.
Well, the only thing is that I hope that they take that, they do apply for Chapter 61, because then it would give the town the right of first refusal. So anyways, ties it up a little bit. But it was nice that they got back to us, and maybe after paying some bills, tax bills, they'll decide that they really want to not have it anymore. So.
Yeah, we're a little baffled as to why it's not developable. We just don't understand but their answer was, well, we just got through selling the property on Glendale Road, which was the house that Mr. Trinseri lived in, and they did that earlier this summer, and they just feel like they need a break. So that's what their answer was. Okay, the next is the Janet helped a lot with a parcel on map 11, parcel lot 2, which is owned by Berry Brook Foresters, Berry Brook Realtors, not Realtors.
LLC is what, LLC is all they say.
Do you want to tell them about what you learned when you contacted their agent, who happens to be a local attorney, Dick Evans, that Janet knows pretty well?
Evans just said that the owner lives in Canada. He likes to buy land. He all this land that we have here at Berrybrook, he just has trees planted to harvest. And he says a lot of those trucks that you see going up and down the highway going north are his trees. He did say he might be interested in allowing people to walk on the property. I haven't gone into that with him, but he said, I'm surprised you didn't know it was already in Chapter 61 for forestry. And I didn't, Cindy, you're going to check to see if the assessors has it?
Yeah, I let April know, I think. Didn't I let you know? April, it wasn't so much the chapter, it was the fact that it had a conservation restriction on it.
Right.
I think that was the thing that we were totally unaware of. And April, I don't remember, did I let you know that's parcel, that's map 11, parcel 2? And yeah, you helped with finding the deed. That was it. You did some research on that. And we confirmed that there is a conservation restriction on that land. So that is conserved. That land is conserved. In the conservation restriction, it did not say that people had the right, that the public had the right to walk on it. But we were hoping for, if we can connect any other pieces of land that are next to it, that we could, somehow walk on the land.
Who holds the conservation restriction?
I don't know.
No, do I. I can ask Dick Evans.
Yeah, that might be worthwhile.
Did you get back to him at all, Janet, after our?
No, I have not. No, I have not, but I can.
Yeah, why don't you get back and certainly say thank you to him, say that it sort of spurred us on to do more research, and also ask that question that Diana just asked about who holds the conservation restriction.
I'll do that. Yeah. No, he's easy to talk with.
And then at the same time say, if there were other nearby properties that were connected that gave permission for the public to walk on, would that landowner, that LLC, be interested in allowing people to walk on the land? Our experience is there's probably a lot of ATVs up there anyway, that's people just go on these. Yeah.
Yeah, but no one lives in town to monitor it. I'm sure that happens.
Yep. So if you can ask that would be really helpful. Thanks, Janet.
Yep, I'll do it.
Okay, and then I'm going to report on one that didn't get on the agenda. You might remember I had made an email, well, actually, I wrote a letter to the wife of the owner of property on map 9, lot 3. The owner's name is Mr. Garfinkel, Dr. Garfinkel. His wife got back to me by email in December and said she'd very much like to talk to us, but would we wait till after the holidays? And of course I said yes. And then I emailed her, it's been about a week now, just to say, what's a good time to perhaps Zoom or have a phone conversation? And I haven't heard back, but I do know that Dr. Garfinkel has been quite unwell, and he's quite elderly. So I'm gonna give some time to be sure that, I'm not harassing them in any way, but hopefully we can have at least a conversation on that. They have a very large parcel. The other piece of old business is that we talked about applying for another neighborhood outreach grant, which would have made third year in a row to do that. Before doing all the work to put it together, I contacted the woman who what's her name? Sarah, I'm trying to think of her last name. Wells, correct, thanks. She very nicely got back to me and said there was no more money left. We didn't get in early enough to get the money for this year's grant money. So she said she'll let me know if there's some kind of change. So right now there is no point in putting in an application because there isn't any money. So I'm not doing that. So we don't have any financial support to bring together any landowners in the next several months. We'll have to watch it and be ready next year if we need financial support. But I will do some follow-up with other landowners that I've made contacts with before and report on future meetings on that. Okay, so that's all I've got under old business. Under new business, so the chairperson of the Conservation Commission, Marla, heard from, who did she hear from? Conservation Works, that the...
Yeah, I think Pete Westover.
Yeah, that the property that's being donated by Ted Hendrick, who lives right here on Cold Spring Road, it's all finalized. It's finally gone through. And the idea was to have something let's call it a ribbon cutting ceremony or some sort of recognition of his generosity to do this. And of course, his daughter, her name is Paula, is the primary communicator with Ted. She doesn't live here, but she comes here like 4 days a week. And I know Diana is in touch with her pretty well. The Conservation Commission is not going to be holding any kind of ceremony, and they just wondered if the Open Space Committee would like to do anything. And so you contacted Paula just to kind of run the concept by her. What did she say, Diana?
She said spring would be good. I said, I understand it might not be a good time for Ted to get outside. And she said spring would be good and we could talk about it then. And it was just Pete Westover had, I guess, suggested to Marla that sooner might be better, but it's up to the Hendricks, of course. And so meantime, I contacted, at Marla's suggestion again, the Friends of Southampton Open Space to ask them if they would be interested in helping out with this, maybe getting a sign underway so we could have the green Concom sign ready and a little 2 or 3 car parking lot done. I guess they have some funds so that they could put toward that. So Allison Windriska is the head of FOSOS, and they're meeting January 20th, and she said that she thought this might be a good project because it's small to, get them kick-started again. So we'll wait. But even if they don't do that in the spring, we could have just a little, try to maybe contact the Reminder or the Gazette and see if they'd take a photo and just have maybe some people from Select Board or Open Space there.
When we say spring, is March too soon? Because I know we're aware that, we don't have any reason to think Mr. Hendrick is unwell, but he's frail, he's older. We want to do the right thing. Should we ask, or does anybody else have any ideas about this right now, about doing something? Should it be later than March? More like April or May, do you think?
I think April may be at the earliest, yeah, just to make sure that it's a little bit warmer and, yeah.
The snow.
Yeah, then we'll have a blizzard in April. But
sometimes March can be a tough month.
Yeah.
All right, good. Maybe by then, if FOSOS does decide to, follow up, I know you've been, you just said you've been in touch with the chair of their board, who is Allison. They could be part of it. We could invite Select Board to attend. We can invite Conservation Commission. We can invite anybody to attend.
Right. Well, I guess I'll just wait and hear what FOSO says after their January 20th meeting.
That sounds good.
If they decide to go ahead or not.
Anybody else have thoughts, or anyone see any reason why we wouldn't want to support this? I don't want to speak on, we don't really need a motion at this point, but what do people think? Hearing nothing, I'll assume everybody's okay.
Well, I don't know anyone else who's donated land lately, so, I think it would be nice to recognize.
Yeah.
Okay, and to get some press. That would be good. Yeah.
If we can. I mean, it's a pretty minor event. I don't know if we could get coverage, but we could try.
I'm sure the Reminder will.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Our Reminder didn't come today, so I wondered if maybe they're on the skids or what.
Wow.
No.
That man, Ryan Frere, he's always trying to write something for Southampton. That's my take on it.
I guess you saw last week's about the Board of Selectmen and the Public Safety Complex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I think it would be really, really nice to celebrate the donation and get it in front of people.
Yeah,
good.
We'll try.
I apologize. I'm trying to work and attend this meeting at the same time. Not gracefully doing either. So.
Oh boy. Thank you, April. Okay, now what time is it? It's 6:43. I don't see Jim Sini. I'm going to read, I hope I'm going to read an email that Jim sent me. Jim is the chairperson of the, oh boy, hold on. He's the chairperson of the Housing Commission, and I invited him to come because he, okay, trash. Let's see if I can get it. I'm going to give you the gist of it. The gist of it is this. He wonders if the Open Space Committee will collaborate with the Housing Commission, if we were to discover any land that was for sale or was donated or somehow we were looking to conserve it, would we be interested in seeing if any portion of that land might be somehow designated for affordable housing? And I'm sorry, I don't have his email. I thought he would be coming and explaining it. I think we have to open this up for discussion just to see, well, first of all, what questions come up, and secondly, what do people think about collaborating? Or what do people think about, affordable housing? We know in this town that there's, it's really a minimum amount of affordable housing. We're looking for more, and we also know that that the CPC funds, that there's a large pot that maybe there's some ideas on how that would be used, but right now there's no project, I don't think, that's gone before CPC officially to utilize the funds for that are designated for affordable housing. So what does everybody think about this?
Well, it strikes me as really not compatible with our mission. Our mission, like, for instance, this Courtney land or the Hendricks land, is to conserve open space. And if people come to us hoping to conserve or protect their land, or, that's what they're thinking of. It's not our job to divvy it up and say, okay, we'll conserve part of it and we'll talk to affordable housing for the rest of it. I know we need affordable housing, and I'm not at all opposed to that. I just don't think it's part of our purview. I don't understand what he's asking us to do.
Yeah, I'd hope he'd come to talk about it.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think I can speak. I think he's discussing it based on what happened. Now I completely forgot the property. I think it was
Canton. It was the Canton property on East Street. Is that what you're thinking of? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Was it East Street? Yeah, it was on East Street. Yeah. And just where there is a possibility of land being developed and it becoming just more of these large developments with McMansions, and also just, and where there is the money, and there has been so much money spent for open space, there is money for CPC to, if you add the component of housing can come in and help financially with creating open space while also creating affordable housing. So I think, and in the long term, we need affordable housing. If we keep just having open space, it's going to affect the town and the economy. So we need, I think the housing authority reaching out and saying, hey, we have this money and we want to collaborate with you in any projects that you may have in a financial way, so that we can establish some affordable housing also in town. You scratch my back, I scratch your back scenario, I think, is a very collaborative way of addressing the needs in the town.
Well, I think it's ironic that you mentioned that parcel, because we certainly tried and we talked about it, and affordable housing was on it. They were the ones who said, this isn't what we're interested in. It's not close enough to the center. And there were all kinds of reasons why they weren't on board with it. they shot it down right away. I don't know.
I don't think they shut it down right away. I think they took a couple meetings to look at it and really assess whether it was something that was going to meet their needs.
Yeah, I just don't understand why you cited that one, that they said this is an example of what might have worked.
Because that's what sparked the conversation of collaborating with open space in the begin at all. And I don't know if anyone's actually been to any of the housing production meetings with PVPC, but that's also a discussion that we've had with their PVPC person that they've been working with, and about collaborating with open space to create affordable housing. And I believe that's part of our housing production plan. So that's why when the opportunity came up, that's something that we brought up, because we did see the possibility on both sides. So it's not just housing authority just bringing it up. I think it is part of the housing production plan, or has definitely been discussed in the meetings that they've had.
Okay.
Well, I really can't think of any scenarios when people have come to us and said, the few people who have come to us, like the Courtneys, and said that they want to conserve their land, where we would be motivated to say, okay, why don't we also make part of it affordable housing? I mean, I also don't agree that it's all open space and not development. To me, it's the opposite. There's plenty of development and less open space. Yeah.
I think it pertains really to, like, if there needs to be some financial support in purchasing the property.
You mean if we're interested in purchasing this property and we can't afford it, or we don't have the money, then we would turn to the housing development people.
Yeah.
What strikes me is we have to do this on a case-by-case basis. And, we just had these people, the Courtneys, coming to this meeting tonight. What she didn't say, but she said to me on the phone earlier, was that a developer approached them, sat down in her house, drafted out a large project that would, a lot of development that would be right behind their house in that open meadow. And they did not like the idea of having housing. So on a case-by-case basis, my sense from that particular example is that they didn't want any housing. They wanted to see it conserved in its total open space scenario. And it wouldn't have worked if we said, well, could we have some of it go to affordable housing? That was my take. So I see that as kind of depends on the circumstance, depends on the property and all the other factors. And if it's something that was closer to the center of town, that was consistent with the guidelines of the housing production plan, et cetera, yeah, I think we should be open-minded to it. I don't think we should just say, no, we're not interested in seeing any potentially conserved land go towards housing. What I'd really like to do is have Jim or other members of the housing authority come to a meeting and have another open conversation, as opposed to us just kind of rallying around right now.
I'll remind them at the next meeting. I'll send an email and I'll remind them at the next meeting.
Are you their rep from the select board?
I am the rep for conservation planning, all of the land housing.
Okay, that'd be great.
I mean, if they had, some land that they're interested in, and this is what we talked about with that Canton property, and there was a possibility of making part of it open space. Yeah. But I think it would be a tall order to make that work.
I think if that property had been located a little differently, maybe closer to the center of town, on the sidewalk, et cetera, maybe we would have been collaborating to kind of figure a way to make it work so that it included affordable housing. That's why I'm suggesting we not, make some kind of blanket statement. Yes, we're 100% going to support all housing projects with landowners who might come to us, or vice versa. We're not going to. I think we should be be open-minded and work to ways to collaborate and depend on what's coming up. We don't have anything on the list right now that's consistent with what I would think they're looking for right now.
No. And if there was something, as being their liaison as well, I would bring that up to open space, but I'm pretty realistic when it comes to these properties and about what would work and what wouldn't work.
Yeah, we should be so lucky.
Paula, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I was. I agree with what you're saying. It has to be on a case-by-case scenario. And I think it would be a good idea to hear what the Housing Commission has to say. But bottom line is it's going to be the owner of the property's decision. If they come and say, we want to donate our land for open space, and we say, well, we'd love that, but we want to add housing, they're more than likely going to back away because that's what they came to open space for, is to keep it open space.
Right.
So definitely it has to be on a case-by-case basis, but I think we have to keep in mind that it's the owner of the property who's going to make that decision.
Absolutely. I agree with Paula, and I agree with what Diana's saying. If people are coming to conserve their property to keep it open space, it would be very presumptive to talk to them about, affordable housing. I think the difference with what the example that I did give was the town had the first right of refusal. So it was in chapter and they were trying to take it out of chapter. And I think it was a very particular case. And I don't know if this is what Jim is saying, and I don't want to put him into words, but to me, in my opinion, that is an example of where housing authority could be included in the conversation, because it's not the owner. The owner doesn't, the owner's just looking for the money at that point. They want to sell the land. They're taking it, the potential to take it out of chapter is there. And that's, I think, where housing authority and open space really have an opportunity to collaborate.
Okay.
I would like to, this is Janet, talking about project by project and the center of town. I would love, I've mentioned this to several people, to contact the people who wanted to build the Dunkin' Donuts next to the church. Now, I think that would be a great place for a couple of affordable houses. And I know their thrust is to build Dunkin' Donuts, but if they might consider doing 2 houses or 3 or whatever the property would accommodate, would someone be willing to contact them with American Fortune or whatever their silly name is, and see if they might talk to us about another direction for their property?
April, can you add to that? I mean, I know you looked pretty closely at all those parcels that are right there on College Highway next to the church.
So it's 2 legal building lots. There is a perk. Any land on College Highway is relatively hard to perk. It could be
relatively what?
I'm sorry?
It's relatively what?
Hard to get Title V percolation rates.
Oh, okay.
Soil conditions are hard. They're rough.
Okay.
So that is the zoning regulations is single family homes. So if the town were to make an exception and grant duplexes, depending on the Title V regulations and the soil conditions, there could be 4 units there. But
well, like those lovely ones that were done on Primary Meadow. There's 2 duplexes. Those are beautiful.
they are beautiful. Those are, we're looking at $1 million duplexes.
Those are affordable housing then.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
But in answer to the owners of the property, the ones who came to town meeting wanted a zone change in order to build something like a Dunkin' Donut. I actually spoke directly to them when they came to the planning board, and I said, that is what our town needs, is affordable housing. Could you look into this? Could you consider this? It's zoned residential. And so somebody has spoken to, and I did it twice. I spoke to them twice because they came twice to the planning board. So I'm not saying they ignored me, nor am I saying they're going to do it. But I do think we told them that, it's zoned residential. So it's a good idea, Janet. We'll see what they're going to do. They own the property now.
I think it'd be a great place. But that's just me. And I talked to Bob Kosov, and he said, yeah, that'd be great having a couple houses there, not a Dunkin' Donuts.
So maybe the housing committee needs to do a formal letter to them as the owners and just say, how far have you gotten on thinking about that? Because it certainly has been,
Well, when you talk to them, do they only develop Dunkin' Donuts type projects, or do they do anything?
At town meeting, they said, no, we weren't even sure we're going to do Dunkin' Donuts. They said, we do other kinds of small, like, I don't think they use the word strip mall, but, other small business kind of plazas.
But not homes, houses.
Not what?
Not houses, not homes. They strip malls and that kind of stuff.
Apparently so, yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
Okay, so let me go ahead and contact Jim and see if we can do a joint meeting in the next several weeks or a month or something. And I'm going to tell him we had somewhat of a conversation here. He can listen to the tape because it is being taped on Easthampton Media, and just get their involvement in it. Is that okay with everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Okay. Let's see here. You all got the email. Whoops. No, what happened here? Can you all hear me? Because it says I signed out.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Did everybody get the invitation to the Mass Open Space Conference, which is a Zoom situation? It's like 4 different days in February. I don't have the dates in front of me, but if you didn't get it, you can tell me and I'll email it to you. I'm going to try to attend some of them. And also the select board, I got a memorandum dated January 3rd, and it's called Southampton Buy Recycled Policy. And it's a 2-page sort of proclamation. Bottom line is that they're basically saying that when there's a purchase of any kind, we should be leaning towards at least 30% post-consumer recycled materials. So I just think we have to keep this in mind. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's probably on the town website. So I'm just announcing that. And I'm realizing I forgot some very important piece of old business, and that has to do with the garden that Charlie has been working on for quite a few months. As you know, we're calling it the Pollinator Garden, and it's meant to go on Pomeroy Meadow Road, right across from those brand new condos that were built on the water commissioner's land. And he sent out the map, and he sent out a list of contractors. We do not have to send this to bid because it's going to cost less than the requirements for when you actually officially have to get, bids in terms of a municipal project. He would like just to send out the letters. Oh my gosh, Jim is here. Hey, we just finished talking about it. Let me just finish this right now. I think that we've talked enough about this Pollinator Garden project. We don't have to go through all the specs again or anything, but I think that we don't even really need a vote to say, go ahead and send out letters seeking bids. So then when he goes to CPC for the money, or when I go with him, then we can actually get they will have official bids, so we'll know what the project will cost. Does anybody want to discuss that any further? No? Okay.
I don't want to discuss that project, but I just want to say a nice thing is there's an Eagle Scout who's working on a pollinator garden, and I gave him Charlie's name and contact, and he wants to do it behind the church. And it sounds like a wonderful project, and I'm sure Charlie will work with him if he does.
Good. It would be great if he could get involved in this one.
Yeah.
It's not behind the church. Yeah. Thank you, Janet.
He's a nice young man. He's working on his Eagle project.
Oh, that's terrific. And I know one of the things we're going to need is some people to help, care for the garden and weed the garden and all of that. So connecting with Charlie makes a whole lot of sense. Thank you on that.
Advice too about a pollinator garden. I said Charlie be the one, so I gave him his information. So looking forward to that.
That's great. Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
a shout out to Charlie for really taking that project under his wing. He's
Thank
done a
you.
nice job. Yeah.
We also shouted out for him for the work he did on the Barnes Aquifer handout or the mailer. And you weren't there, April, but the Courtneys said very specifically that they received that in the mail about protecting the Barnes Aquifer. And that was part of the sort of impetus or the precipitant for them to proceed to do the conservation, because they know they're in the recharge district. So that's great. Jim, you're on the phone. Let's see if we have other stuff. He's still talking on the phone. So I'm going to bring up the goals that we created last year at this time for 2021. Where are they? Look, sir. Show all windows. Why does that happen to me? I pull them together. I make sure they're there. And then they're not. Here they are. Okay. So last year, these are the goals. We're just going to review these now, and then I'm going to ask everybody to go back and think about goals we have for 2022, and we'll talk about that at the next meeting. But we've done pretty well. We worked really hard on the Excel sheet. We can always work more for land for prioritization. Pollinator Garden, that's gotten pretty far, almost done. Community garden, we never really got far on creating a community garden. That sounds to me like a vegetable garden, but that was on our list from last year. A walking path with accessibility to town center. More work can be done on that. I'm going to try to scroll down here. Complete the, connect landowners for the target areas for the neighborhood outreach grant. We absolutely did that in the beginning of this year. The Barnes Aquifer brochure was completed. And we have been trying to support FOSOS. They had a couple of months where they were tied up with other things and they weren't able to meet. But from what we understand, they're going to be meeting, I think, next week and moving forward on their projects. We talked about a newsletter of some sort or some way to communicate what we're doing. And I think that we need a little more work on that. We need to think about how we can continue to be in front of people on things. Collaborate with other towns. We haven't really done much on that. We could be thinking more. And then bird sanctuary in one of the town's conserved lands. And Janet, I think you were going to do some looking into that.
I looked into it, but I haven't done much, I can tell you the truth. I'm more concerned with our property where we have a program with the DCR. We call it Foresters for the Birds. And I'm kind of waiting around to see what's progressing on that and see how many birds we get. But I have been kind of working on it.
Okay. All right, good. So for everybody on the committee, let's plan to I'm going to put this on the agenda for our February meeting to determine what our goals are for 2021. They have to be reasonable goals. Ideally, we do goals that we can achieve. So we can be thinking about that.
Pardon me, do you want me to include these goals in this night's meeting minutes?
Sure. I have it. This is a document. If you don't have it, I can email it to you.
Yeah, and then I'll just attach it to tonight's minutes. Okay.
Oh, okay, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. So Jim, are you still there?
Looks like he's gone.
His face is gone, but he's still there because he's got,
Yeah, he's still in the meeting, so.
yeah, I don't know if he's still on the telephone or something. Let's see here. Is there any other announcements? Oh, be sure everybody does the survey that is on the town website, which is.
Yeah, thank you for reminding. I forgot. Yes, the ARPA survey. It's all over the town website and social media. So fill that out, please.
Can you tell me more about that, please? I'm not aware of that. I saw the signs everywhere, but what is that?
You want to explain it, Joy?
Sure. So so we have ARPA funds that were granted to us in 3 different installments. I think I'm not going to give quote numbers because I will get them wrong. But the town select board is looking for the town's priorities and how we should be spending the ARPA funds. So there's just a series of questions asking families. Hold on 1 minute. My daughter's on the.
Okay, well, she's.
Sorry. Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
My daughter was going to start a conversation on the phone. It's just a survey asking families where they would like to see the select board and the town spend the ARPA funds and what they think the necessities are since COVID happened.
And it's like a total of over $1.8 million over the course of 2 years that has to be utilized within 4 years. Is that right, Joy?
Yeah. Yes. I will actually find the link and put it in the chat.
Thanks. And you can go on the town website. It's easy to do the link from there. Jim, you disappeared, Jim.
Again.
Oh, well, I mean, no, this time he signed off. Wow.
Next month.
Oh, wow. Because we're just about to wrap up. Okay. Well, I will invite him to come next month. It looks like he got tied up with other things too. So is there any other business that you want to bring up? Anybody? Okay. So next meeting, let's see here. February 10th, Thursday, February 10th. How's that sound? Hearing no.
I won't be here. I'll be away.
Okay. That's all right. Let's try to do it the 10th, 6 o'clock, Zoom, and I'll invite housing to be present. And is that okay with you, Diana, or do you want us to reschedule so you can be?
That's all right. You can, like you said, we should talk. Talk is good.
Okay, very good. What's that?
We could do it the following week, maybe?
I'm gone for a whole week.
Will you be around on Thursday, the 17th?
No.
Okay. Let's go ahead and have this, and if you've got comments or whatever, you can let us know. Oh, Jim, you're back. Okay. So go ahead, Jim. We started to talk about this, so please, we were actually going to ask for a meeting with you next month if you weren't able to get here.
I'm sorry, folks. I'm having lots of computer trouble tonight. So my understanding, I've been invited here today to talk to you about potential collaborations between the Housing Authority and Open Space. And it's nice to see Cindy nod her head, so I'm definitely on the right topic. So one of the things we were thinking of on the Housing Authority is that when folks in town donate land to the town for open space, one of the things I'd really like to work with the Open Space Committee on, I being the Housing Authority, we'd like to work with you folks on is if that land that's donated abuts frontage, a road, a street, that maybe we could carve out the frontage piece of that open space for maybe some affordable housing. And what gives me the idea is, if you recall, those of you who may have attended the Kestrel Trust presentation a couple of years ago at the Congregational Church, where they talked about, when private citizens donated land, open space in that way, sometimes they wanted to carve out a piece of that land for the old homestead that they wanted to keep, or sometimes they wanted to carve out pieces of land for their children to build houses on, and sometimes they carved out pieces of land for affordable housing. Collaborations with the local housing authority and someone like Habitat for Humanity come in and build a house on that small piece of property. So I'm really, I keep saying my apologies, the housing authority, we are very interested in that kind of endeavor and collaborating with open space, because I think you folks would be the ones who would hear word about donated property. And if you could keep that option in mind, that maybe working with us to work with the landowner to feel them out for that, it could be, produce some great results. We could produce open space for the town, obviously, but also some land is one of the biggest barriers we have to try to create housing in town. It's, we can get help with the building, like, again, Habitat for Humanity, but the land itself is expensive. So I'm just wondering if any folks have any thoughts about that or questions.
My first thought is we've been operating now for about 5 years, Open Space has, and the only land that anyone has donated is Mr. Hendricks, 8 acres, and he donated it specifically so that nothing would be built on it. So as Janet pointed out before you were here, it really would depend on, or Paula actually, it would depend on the owners, their desires, their wishes. And when they come to open space, as I've said, very few people have, but the ones who have did it specifically to conserve their land because they did not want it to be developed. So I think we would have to be very careful not to alienate people, who came, and then we said, and by the way, could we build affordable housing on it? I think we would have to be very careful in a situation like that.
Agreed. I think my guess is when people say they want to devote to open space and not to development is just that reason. They don't want, 10 or 12 units on a cul-de-sac. I'm talking about, are you folks familiar with East Street in Easthampton?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a Habitat unit on East Street, and it's built as a long duplex, and it just looks like a house. So looks like one unit. So again, I totally agree with you. We don't want to alienate or put off someone who wants to donate land to the town, but I think it's all how it's presented. And, obviously if they were throwing up no, then we don't pressure them because we don't want to lose their interest in donating the land. But people might consider when you frame it as, we're not talking about a huge development, it would be up to them really, if they were any interest, 1, 2, 0 units. But it's something that maybe, again, the presentation by Kestrel really put the bug in my head. I haven't even considered something like that. And perhaps people who donate land haven't considered something like that either. And so therefore presenting it isn't, in my belief, an option.
So at the very beginning of this meeting, Jim, we had a landowner, a large parcel landowner, and her daughter come to this meeting. They approached Kestrel, and Kestrel and the land, almost all of it is over the water recharge area of our town, and includes a branch of the Manhan River, and it's up off Pomeroy Meadow Road. I had a conversation, not tonight, but with the woman who owns the property, and she was pursued by a developer because the developer, and we know this, that the developers are sending out letters and are telling landowners, gee, we can make you, very rich people if you'll agree to let us develop your land. This developer came and sat down with her and maybe other members of the family and sort of drafted out what could be there and what it would look like and all that. And that was so contrary to what they wanted. What they really wanted was to conserve their land. So I think this was an example of what Diana just mentioned. If we were to say, well, could you think about carving out some affordable housing? It would be like them saying, did you hear us? We don't want any more houses around us. We want this open space. So what we kind of concluded a little bit earlier before you joined us when we started to talk about this was each circumstance has to be kind of taken as it comes up. If, for example, if like a couple of months ago, we knew about that parcel on East Street in Southampton that came out of chapter, and the town was given the right of first refusal on that. And so, the Conservation Commission, the Housing Commission, Open Space, we all looked at that and tried to think of a way to make it work with in mind the idea of affordable housing. And the location wasn't ideal for the affordable housing way of doing things. So I think I'll speak for myself, not for the whole committee. I love the idea of supporting and collaborating and being open-minded. But if a landowner wants to see their land conserved or preserved as open space, we got to be careful. We got to, walk kind of carefully.
So I will add to that. I agree. You're the open space committee, not the housing authority. And people come to you with open space in mind. I totally get that. But I would ask folks to think about this. First of all, I've heard, I keep hearing, housing, plural. It could be approach them, would you consider a unit? So, and it's just in the corner of the lot. And let's remember that, the story you just told, Cindy, is a great story because this individual, this family essentially walked away from money. So they're not motivated by money. They're motivated by something else, which not many of us are motivated by, which is some altruistic purpose to do better by the town. And so they might join me and others in thinking one of the things we can make this town better is to provide some more affordable units so that we can, welcome everyone in the community from all different spectrums on that income continuum. Still have open space in the majority of the land they're donating, but they could also, to hit their altruistic nature, really contribute something to the town, simultaneous to doing open space. So that, to me, that's the emotion that is playing here when these folks donate this land, is they want to do better by the town. And maybe if they were aware that this is one way they could do better, and not lose out on the open space piece either, because we're not talking about a lot of land. You can build a small home or a small duplex, depending on the frontage requirements, half an acre or something. So I would just encourage this committee to consider that too, that it's not necessarily an all or none. You do have to approach the people correctly, yes.
Okay. Anybody else want to ask or raise questions or comments to Jim or anybody? So what I'm getting from this is keep our minds open, sort of look at each circumstance as it arises. It might be another situation where there's property that's there, it's saying it's going to come out of the chapter protection status of, and the town gets the right of first refusal, and we should be open-minded to try to think of a way that it could be considered for some type of affordable housing, small or large project. I'm for it.
Yeah, and that's all I'd ask is for folks to have an open mind and remember that you guys are driving this bus, not the housing authority. So we would come in if it was broached and there was some interest, we could answer questions or whatnot. But
Well,
I don't envision us coming in as a sales pitch.
Yeah. With this property, on Pomeroy Meadow, for instance, it would be a water grant under the drinking water protection auspices, and the deadline is in 2 months. So Kestrel's going to work on that for us, and how we would get in this particular case, how we could also coordinate with, another authority. It seems complicated to me.
That's a fair question. I'm never surprised anymore how many layers there are to these things.
Yeah.
We just started this. I can only say that, you mentioned Kestrel, they have experience doing this.
Yeah.
And so I would guess that the heavy lifting wouldn't be this committee or the housing authority. We could rely on Kestrel to guide us because that's what they do.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the woman who works with Mark Walmsley from Kestrel, he's the one we've got the greatest familiarity with. He's brought in a new person named Bridget Lively. Anyway, she was there tonight. I'm going to just contact her. She's had many, many, many conversations with the owners of this property we're talking about. And if her sense is exactly what my sense is, that they don't want to see any, and they live on the property, that they may not want to see any development, nothing to do with what kind of development. They just don't want to see any development. They want to keep it open. Right. Then we'll leave it at that. But if she thinks that they could be at least asked, would any portion of it on the frontage be available, then I think it's worth asking. Anyway,
I think it's this property. So I am all for keeping in mind, and as I spoke before, Jim, you were here. I was, I'm all for keeping open or housing authority in the back of open spaces mind. But I think it depends on the property, and I think it's not just because it's involving water and the water department and their needs. I don't know if that's the best property to broach the subject with.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's, as Jim said, this is multifaceted, and that's one of those properties that's, now you're getting into the water department and what they want from what they're looking to, from the property. So I think maybe not so much.
Yeah.
But definitely, other properties that.
So I would I'm going to respectfully disagree with you a little bit, Joy, and this is why.
Sure.
There are not a lot of other properties. I'm hearing from this committee that folks have been on for 5 years and haven't been approached that often. So, and I'm learning in the housing authority that affordable housing is not easy. So if there are some hoops to get through in this, we in the housing authority are willing to do, if it's working with the water department, whatever we need to do. I do agree it starts with the owners. And I think, since to Cindy's point, if this person who works for Kestrel, I'm always forgetting her name.
Bridget.
If she knows them so well, maybe she's the one to broach the topic, because they do this all the time at Kestrel. Say, hey, on other properties, we've done this. Do you have any interest, rather than any of us? And she would know how to approach the person because there's already working with them a lot. And I would trust Bridget's, take on that and response. She might be the best person to ask, and the least threatening person for the landowners to have the question asked of. It's not someone from the town, it's someone from Kestrel. And then we would know. And if
she's the only one. Yeah.
Right. If the landowners said, yeah, we could do something like that, then, I'm all in for whatever we need to do to work through with various other agencies, because we don't get a lot of opportunities like this, is my sense.
Well, could I just back up a little? And is there any frontage on this property?
Yeah, I was going to pull out the map, because the large portion of frontage on this property is not part of the parcel. You can't probably see it right there.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, we might just be.
And it's academic if there's no frontage.
I think the frontage is minimal. They apparently, over the years, they being the landowners, have sold off. This is Palmer Meadow Road, like this, and the red line, is the property that they're donating is all around it. this open space right here is not their property. That's where all the frontage is. So maybe it's an absolute moot point because there isn't any frontage.
Yeah,
What the developer did was he talked about utilizing this little tiny strip and going in and then developing a development, which.
So there is an easement. There is an easement. But that proves another challenge because, that would mean affordable housing way off the road back there on a corner. Yeah.
And that's what she very clearly said to me. They didn't want to see 5 or 6 houses back there.
Yeah.
And it would be worth no developer's money to put a roadway all the way back there for one unit.
Yeah.
And maybe not for the housing authority either. So without the frontage, Diana, that's an excellent question. It was an assumption on my part.
Yeah.
Well, it's still the kind of thing we need to discuss.
Yeah.
It occurs to me that maybe the housing authority would be the ones to know of a property before we would and say, hey, could you help us get part of this conserved open space and where we want to use the frontage or something, because it just doesn't, like the properties we hear about are out in the woods and.
Yeah. So that's a great question. We have in our committee, we've done a search of available properties in town. The town owns some properties taken on a tax lien or whatever, but unfortunately all of those properties are not available for development. They're either too wet or don't have any frontage, they're landlocked, or fill in the blank, too small of a lot, don't meet the requirements for based on the zoning. So we've kind of turned over those stones. It's a great question.
Yeah.
So Jim, let's just accept this wonderful collaborative conversation, keep it alive. And that's all I think we can do is just keep our minds open to this. If that's, you're shaking your head, so I assume
yes. And to Diana's point, again, if for some reason the housing authority comes through us for some reason and it's an open space opportunity, we're certainly going to communicate that to you folks.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I need to get going. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, Joy.
We'll adjourn. All right. Thanks, Jim, for coming. Thanks, everybody.
I appreciate your patience. Thanks for welcoming me. Nice to meet folks.
Always.
Alrighty.
Bye, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.